Hi, I'm Elaine Petrucci. Please welcome Martin Greene, who was our top of mind guy today on our Caregiver Cast podcast. Before I formally introduce Martin, I'm going to give you some background information about him. Martin Greene is the top of mind guy who provides expert communications and leadership training and coaching. Martin's exposure is to leverage his endless curiosity and love of sharing what he discovers to support and inspire others toward becoming a better version of themselves. Marty holds a Bachelor of Science in Education and a Master's of Music from the University of Maryland, and certifications as a John Maxwell trainer, a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, and a certification as a trainer and coach of the bank methodology. His experience in training, speaking, project management, business and sales have enabled Marty to create a trademarked framework called the M.I.N.D blueprint. That's M.I.N.D, which prepares business owners, practitioners, and family members, all within the caregiving community, to create and foster authentic relationships, navigate the many types of conversations required on a daily basis, and influence action and behavior in a way that provides a win-win-win environment. Marty will keep you aware of what needs to be at the top of your mind so that your clients and their family members know that they are in good hands. He offers group and individual training and coaching, along with the valuable support tools and resources. Welcome to Caregiver Cast, Marty. How are you?
Well, thank you, Mary. And I thank you so much for inviting me today.
Most definitely. So you and I spoke about this M.I.N.D strategy. So can you give us what the acronym M.I.N.D stands for, please?
Sure. So M.I.N.D, the M stands for magic frame, which essentially is how you show up for a conversation. The I stands for innovative mapping, which is the ability to calibrate who it is that you're talking to, whether it's one person or a group of people. And then the third is notable communications, which is taking that, being in the position of confidence and knowing who you're talking to and being able to communicate in their language so that they hear what it is you're saying and are able to be persuaded or influenced in a positive direction towards what you're, of course, with good intent is always a key thing. And then the last one, the D, is for duplicate and celebrate. Essentially, Stephen Covey's seventh law, which is, or habit, which is sharpen the saw, by calibrating how you did and just being able to tweak what you did that went right and tweak what went wrong and be able to do it again.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining that. So how I know sometimes caregivers can have very challenging discussions with family members or their loved ones about different, difficult topics such as finance, medications, illness, insurance. So how can caregivers use this M.I.N.D strategy to help them navigate this minefield that they're walking through?
Well, thanks for asking. And to me, it's all about any conversations about relationship, right? And being able to connect. So just a little data that I've discovered, and that is, there was a study done by a marketing company called the Chally Group years ago that showed that only 18% of people will buy. And when I use the word buy, I mean in the larger framework of be influenced or persuaded by someone whose personality does not match theirs. And they will buy 82% of the time when they do. So if you're thinking in a caregiver's point of view, and you're the caregiver and you have family members who maybe have a different map of the world than you do, if you communicate to them in your map of the world and it doesn't match, there's likely to be conflict. Whereas if you can speak in their language, and you've heard the term, somebody say, "Oh, now you're talking my language," right?
Right,
And
exactly.
that's literally what we mean. So what we do is we teach people to be able to speak in all four languages, because there are really four different personality types. And we can talk more, we'll get more into depth in that. But if you are able to only talk in your own, from your own point of view, you will have a good conversation 25% of the time and turn people off 75% of the time. And in a situation where you talk about somebody's health and their well-being, it's really important for them to feel like you have their parent or whoever it is that they're advocating for, their best view in mind. And it's important that you see things the same way and through the same set. So that's really what this is about, is number one, preparing you to have that conversation mentally. How do you want to show up, and where's this conversation supposed to go, right? What's the ultimate outcome that you want out of it?
Mhm.
And then be able to understand how to talk in their language, so that so everybody ends up with a win-win-win. The patient wins, the advocate wins, and you win.
Wow. That would be nice if that happened.
Yeah.
More like 75 or 100% of the time. So how does a caregiver find out those four types of behaviors or languages that people need to know about and be able to determine what the other person's point of view is, so that they could have a more meaningful conversation?
Sure. Well, ultimately, there's really two methodologies that are built into this. One of them is NLP, which is neuro linguistic program.
Mhm.
And so, along with the first thing is understanding the other person's map of the world, right? And
Right.
that map of the world is partially encased in their values, because some people value the budget that they're working on. Other people are very nurturing. And of course, if you're a caregiver, you're naturally going to be a nurturer. That would probably be your first code. But maybe the person you're talking to, they just want the bottom line on what to do, or they want to know, okay, in what order do I have to give people their medicine, or maybe again, what's the budget for this? So
Mhm.
how you do it, what I do is we teach people the values, the codes, and we help them literally what we call crack their code. So think about it like an ATM machine.
Okay.
If you put your debit card in an ATM machine, there's four numbers 99% of the time. If you get those numbers in the wrong order, what happens?
You don't get money.
Yes, and if you do it often enough, what they swallow your card, right?
Yeah, they swallow it. Yes, definitely.
Exactly. So if you can understand the other person's code of values, you literally have their ATM code to be able to talk their language. So what I do is we teach that methodology first by having them crack their own code, and I will give you the link in order to do that. And what happens when you crack your own code is you get a report that's valued at $99, but it gives you insight into your own personality. I know you did that, Mary. Did you find that report insightful?
Oh, yes, definitely. And I was really surprised about how detailed and how accurate the report was, based on, how I answered the questions.
Yeah,
So I was really pretty impressed it could break it down so thoroughly.
sure. And it only took you about 2 minutes to do the whole thing, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, there are other methodologies for finding someone's personality type. There's Enneagram, there's DISC, there's color codes, there's animal codes. There's so many of them, and they're just like this one, but they're completely different, because those are all based on psychology, and we all come from the same place, from way back in Hippocrates, being able to find the four temperaments and being able to give people medication depending on what their personality was, and make them better. But the difference is that those are all based on psychology. This methodology is based on why people make decisions, based on their values. So you're able to find out in 90 seconds what their code is, instead of having to spend hours and lots of money to figure out what their code is, or interview them or interrogate them and make people feel very defensive about what you're asking them. This is a very non-confrontational, simple, fun way actually to find out about the other person and also about yourself. And so that's where we start. We start with everybody cracking their own code, and then we get a report that gives us some insight into the language that will influence them in a positive way versus what might turn them off.
Okay. Exactly. So now we've taken this 90-second, 2-minute quiz, and we put the 4 codes in order. So what happens after that? How does one use the bank code?
Great. That's a great question. So what we do next is we have several different methods, depending on, some people like to have structured training. Some people like to do it on their own time. And of course, caretakers are busy with their clients. So time is always going to be an issue. And so we have some self-learning courses. We do hour and a half long training, so it doesn't take too much time. And what we are doing though is starting with a webinar. So on May 31st at 6 p.m. Eastern time, I'm going to be offering a webinar for all your listeners to learn a little bit more about this. And there will be enough that people can really start using it. Okay. And then if they want to explore it deeper, we'll have opportunities for that as well. But that's a good place to start, because you get the essence of not only the bank portion of it, but really the whole mind blueprint. Because it's not the whole thing is not just an educational or an intellectual exercise. It's about people, right? It's about really being able to because when you're having a conversation, people can say things that really throw you off. Remember the movie Dirty Dancing?
Yes.
So there's a scene in Dirty Dancing where Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze are starting to learn how to dance together, and Patrick realizes that she's a total klutz, and so he takes her to a lake and he has her walk on a log. And the first few times she falls off the log because she has no balance. Right. And ultimately, by the end of the scene, she's very balanced, and the two of them start dancing on the log as if they were dancing on a dance floor. Well, being able to maintain that balance while you're having a conversation with advocates or patients, right? That's what we teach. We teach you how to show up so that you have that balance, so you can be flexible. We call it the law of. Forgot the name of it, but I'll think. I'm sorry. The law of requisite variety, which means that the person with the most flexibility controls the environment. And as the caretaker, you want to control it in a positive way, right? And have And so that's what we teach, is how to use that law to everyone's advantage.
Awesome. So, in making this system work for everyone's advantage, like you just said. How do you bring in, I guess, the NLP and everything else to make it easier, I guess, for the person to communicate with different kinds of people so that they can have this positive relationship with them?
Sure. So there are verbal and there are nonverbal clues that enable you to learn how a person processes information, whether they're more audio, they're more listening, or more visual, or more kinesthetic, where they're totally in their mind, which is called audio digital. So there are verbal and nonverbal clues that let you know which that is, and it all kind of aligns with their values. So if you think about it, so there are really 4 different, what we call reflexes like that. We call them representational systems. And then there's also 4 bank codes. So if you know all 4 of the representational systems, and you know the 4 bank codes, you have an 8-cylinder engine, which is a really powerful engine to drive, right? Okay. And so that's what we teach. We teach how to recognize verbally and through nonverbal clues what their how they're processing the information, so that when you talk to them in their code, they're actually hearing you.
So you not only have to talk to the person in the bank code, but you also have to use one of those representational systems as well in order to convey that information more effectively.
Well, yeah. So let's say, for instance, a person uses a terminology like, "Oh, I see what you mean." The chances are that they're probably more visually oriented. Or if they say, "Oh, I hear you," or "Oh, I can really feel what you're saying," they're more kinesthetic. So it's not really difficult. It's just recognizing what those main words are, and that's what we teach. But it's like everything else, it's practice. When you ride a bike for the first time, you're probably not very steady, but it's just a skill that we help people build.
Okay. Can you explain how you mesh those two together a little bit more specifically, please?
Sure. So let's say, a person has a personality where they're more knowledge oriented.
Okay.
They want to know all the data. If you're giving them a medicine, they want to know everything about that medicine. Or if you have a way of taking care of them, they want to know everything that you know about it. They're going to ask a lot of questions, and they're really going to dig. Well, the chances are they're probably audio digital also, which means that they're in their head a lot. And so so if you're a nurturing person and they're a knowledge kind of person, then you're going to want to be prepared with a lot of information for them and a lot of data to make them comfortable, right? And that's how we mesh them. I guess I can use an example of somebody's more kinesthetic. Okay, so you're using words more like that relate to feeling, like heat or sharp, or you're really sharp, right?
Right.
Or I sense that you're having an issue with this. So there are certain feeling words which, of course, we get into more depth, but those are a couple of them. And I'll just give you an example of how that works. So I played a lot of tennis and golf. And at one point I wanted to learn how to do a backhand slice.
Okay.
And my coach was having a terrible time trying to teach me that, because he would just demonstrate it and then say, "You just do it," and then show me. But my main representational systems are visual and then kinesthetic.
Okay.
So for me, the best way I can learn is for someone to actually show me in slow motion what it looks like, and then have me do it so that I can feel what it feels like. Telling me a description of it does me no good at all. I have to literally see it and then be able to feel it, and then I can do it. And then, so that if you think about it, do you know anybody in your life who, when they studied, they had to write down the notes and then read them to themselves over? They couldn't really learn unless they wrote everything down.
Right.
That's a more kinesthetic learner.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then the visual part kicks in, because you're reading what you said, and that's how your brain processes it. So that, some people can just hear it and they learn it, but people who are kinesthetic cannot do that. They have to literally feel themselves writing it and then see it. So that's kind of, those are some of the clues that tell you how a person is processing.
Okay, great. Thank you so much that's a great example. So we've learned about the 4 representational systems. So can you explain a little bit more what the BANK, or the BANK, stand for?
Sure.
Please. Thank you.
Yeah. So BANK is an acronym for Blueprint, Action, Nurturing, and Knowledge. It's the only methodology in the world that's scientifically validated to predict the other person's decision-making behavior in less than 90 seconds.
Okay.
So when we say blueprint, so a blueprint person is someone who needs structure, who wants you to follow the rules. They're very budget conscious. They really think about policemen, think about judges, people who do that. So the blue is represented by that. They tend to be a little on the blue side because they're always processing in terms of risk. They're very risk averse. They don't like to take chances. They're going to be very careful about things, and that's their, and also being on time is something that they value. So never be late for a person who's a blueprint. Action is, think of a race car driver, somebody who's on fire. Think of people who want to walk the red carpet, like movie stars and top athletes, very competitive, very need constant stimulation. If they're making a decision, they're going to make the decision on the spot. They won't dwell over it. They just, if you give them the facts, they'll make a decision right away. So the N is nurturing. So think of caretakers, nurses, teachers, people who are concerned more about the mission than they are about the money.
Okay.
They care. They're about the relationship. They're about authenticity. They are very much for the greater good. They're looking for the greater good in everything that they do, and they're maintaining the relationship. And then you said the last one was the K. So
Yes.
So the K is knowledge, which are basically people who are data driven, who need a lot of information. They're going to, whatever you tell them, they're going to Google to make sure that what you said is right. Accuracy is very important to them, and of course credentials are very important to them. So that really pretty much tells you they love gadgets, they love technology, they love perfection, essentially. In themselves. They seek perfection, and you'll find that they're the ones that are the hardest to get a decision out of, because it's not because they don't like you, it's because they want to make sure that they're doing the right thing.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So in using the bank system that you've described, the blueprint, the action, the nurturing, and the knowledge person, and the 4 neuro-linguistic programming representational systems, if a caregiver is using them effectively, can you explain what would change with their relationship with the one that they're caring for, or just family members, friends, colleagues?
Sure. Well, let's start with the patient themselves, right? So if it's really important to know their personality code, particularly because you have to have their confidence. And so when they know you're talking their language and they're processing the way they process, it's very easy for them to feel confident in you, that you have their best idea in mind, right? Your best interest at heart. And that now let's talk about the advocates for them. So now you let's say you have a patient who's also a nurturer, but then let's say you have a brother and a sister who are taking care of their child, their son and daughter, and maybe their son is very much action oriented. He just wants the bottom line and everything, and the daughter maybe she's a blueprint. She's very concerned about the process of how to take care of them, how are you following all the rules? Are you doing all the right things? Are you making sure that she's okay, that there's no risk involved in what you're doing? So now if you can talk to both of their codes, and it's really important you do, because they may be fighting with each other. So now you're not only managing your patient, you're managing the conflict between the two of them. And the best example I can use it as is my own kids. They fought like crazy until they were adults, because my son is very much an action knowledge kind of person, and my daughter is a blueprint nurturer. So they say in relationships that opposites attract, but then they also attack. Well, children are the same way. Two kids came from the same womb, but they could have completely different personalities and
Mhm.
have that's why you get a lot of conflicts. And of course, one of them is concerned with money, the other one isn't. They just want to make sure their parent is taken care of. So you're by being able to talk in both their languages, now you're able to diffuse issues like that. So you can see the transformation available by that, right?
Well, exactly, because I know sometimes caregivers are resenting the caregiving role because of the relationship they've had with the person
Mhm.
that they potentially will be caring for, or the other siblings want to stay out of it, or um, the siblings just don't know how to help, I guess. And
Mhm.
that leaves the person doing the care pretty isolated. So can you address those two about how using the bank and the representational systems can help in those situations?
Sure. And in this case, the whole mind blueprint really comes into play because when you're going into those conversations, you have to, number one, know your own purpose, right? What you're and have
Mm,
confidence in your own purpose, but you also have to know the outcome that you want from the conversation. And knowing that,
mm,
now you know who you're dealing with. So you may be dealing again, you're dealing with an action person and you're dealing with a blueprint person who have their own conflicts. You can talk in both in each language. So let's say for the action person, you're telling them this is what we're going to do. So maybe that action person is the one who really doesn't want to be part of this. They don't know how to help. Maybe they're just helping by becoming better listeners to the other person. So um,
mhm,
it, it 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 enables you to say, okay, you're the bottom line here is I'm providing the care. I just need to know from you that you're on my that we're on the same team here because
mhm.
the bottom line is your mom's care, right?
Right.
Okay, and then for the blueprint, you just have to give them the confidence that you're doing things with your expertise and that you're following a set of procedures that is well worn that you know that by
Mm,
following these procedures you're going to be able to make their mom comfortable or uh, do the right things, take the medication when they need it or whatever. So
mhm.
with you can see the first one, you're just making them feel comfortable. The second one, they need more information. They need to know that you're following a structure that's not going to put their parent at risk. So that, but initially, you're setting yourself up so that when unexpected things are said or done,
Mhm.
you have the flexibility to be able to handle whatever comes your way because there's no script in the world that's going to put you through that conversation. You have to be able to be
Mhm.
situationally aware of what's going on, and
Right.
that's what this prepares you to do.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. So if families are having this difficulty communicating with one another, such as your family and with your son and daughter,
Mhm.
um, what, how does one get in contact with you? And then how long do they coach with you until they learn the new skills?
Okay, so they can get a hold of me. Best way is actually my digital business card is very simply martycard.me. So it's martycard.me. And on that card, they can learn more about me and what I do and should look at my blog on my website and also arrange an appointment where we can talk and explore what they need. Uh, I offer a range of different services that can, and really it's going to depend on their need and how quickly they can learn it. But it's really, we offer a community where they can practice
Mm,
doing it in a very safe environment where they don't have the conflict there. And we do group classes and we also do one-on-one coaching. So we can really be flexible to meet their needs. And I mean, It could be, it obviously depends on their relationship and how similar they are, and of course the relationship with the person they're giving care to, as far as time. But again, some of the things we do, we have resources where they can learn at their own speed, or they can be guided. So really, depending on how they learn and how their time needs to be managed, we can really deal with almost any situation.
Well, that's really great to know, because I think caregivers feel like they don't have the time that they need just to do the caregiving responsibilities. So it's nice to know that your program is really flexible in that regard, so that it meets individual needs. I really love that piece. So can you give us 3 takeaways from your interview today that will help and encourage caregivers to look into exploring the bank and the NLP training that you provide?
Sure. So, well, the first one is I cordially invite you to attend that webinar on May 31st. If for some reason 6 p.m. is a bad time Eastern because your is feeding or else, we can be flexible and great. We can do more than one, obviously. So if that's an issue. So the first one is that's going to be a place 35 minutes. You're going to get an awful lot of insight into how to get started with this. The second is that it's all about being flexible and, of course, listening, right? So you have to have an open mind to and be situationally aware of what's going on in front of you, and obviously care about the other person to start with. So this is what this really does is enable you to take the focus off you and put it on the other person, and whether that other person is the person you're taking care of, or the caregiver, or advocates for the caregiver. So if I was going to give 3 tips, one is be open to hear what the other be open to the fact of one thing, and that is everybody has their own view of the world.
Great point.
And their own map of basically everybody can look at a map and see different things. Some people see the restaurants, some people see the roads, some people see the traffic. Everybody has their own vision of what they saw. People can see the same incident and see different things, right? So it's important to understand that the other person's map of the world to them is as important to them as it is to you. So if you're going to make that connection, you have to open yourself to look at their map of the world and see the world as they see it, and hear the world as they hear it, and feel the world as they feel it.
Great point. Thank you so much. This has been really eye-opening, because I think that more caregivers should contact you so that they can have a better relationship with the person that they're caring for, as well as family members or friends or colleagues. So Marty, thank you so much for being on Caregiver Cast today. You offered some great information about the tools that caregivers can learn, and they can do it at their own pace, or in a group situation, or individually. So thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I love this. A great conversation, and I'm so excited to. If anybody got just a little bit of insight into how to do this better, I had to be a caregiver myself, so I know a little bit about the struggle, and the struggle is real. So whatever we can do to make that struggle, that journey easier, I'm really, really happy to be able to do that.
Well, thank you so much. It is a challenging journey. Everybody's is different, and but the stress, the overwhelm, and exhaustion are all there all the time. So I appreciate you being here and understanding what a caregiver does go through. So thank you so much.
Again, you're very welcome, and thank you. And for your listeners, I hope and pray for you, because I know that there's always that support, and you need to be heard.
Thank you. That is the other big issue, is that they're working in isolation and aren't being heard. So you've nailed it quite well,
Thank
Marty.
you.
So we will see you again at this webinar at the end of the month.
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll provide, if you'd like, I'll provide a Zoom link for you for them to register for it.
Oh, great. Yes, that would be awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. You're welcome. Have a great one now.
You too.